right now. She has confirmed. And then I'm just going to ask anyone that is signed in as someone else, please shoot me a note so I know who you are. I seem to think, Sue, we're good. I know who you are. I seem to see that everybody's good because we're keeping track and we're going to be sending out the badges. So remember, if you do 5 or more sessions, you're going to get a conference badge, an opportunity to get a conference badge. We'll send you the link. So we're looking forward to that. Please, if you are not speaking, turn off your camera and mute your mic so that we can listen to the presentation. And then, of course, at any time, feel free to post any questions or comments at the chat, but we will be actually addressing them at the end of the session. And at which time you can also just hold on to your question, put your hand up using the reactions tab at the bottom, and you can you can show your video and unmute and speak and ask your question too, because we really want to encourage that kind of engagement as well. So whatever you're comfortable with, that's what we're going to do. So without further ado, I would like to pass it over to Frosina. Why don't you unshare for a moment, just so everyone can see you when you introduce yourself. Oh, and there I am a little bit bigger. And then we can, you can share after and begin your presentation. So it's great to see everybody. Thank you so much. And as you know, I don't know if all of you know, we are at Fern right now, a few of us from the committee, warming things up for when we come together in May. Okay, so Frosina, over to you. I know, Natalia, you'll be here in May too. I pass it over to you and look forward to this session. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, and welcome, everyone. I'm Frosina Stojanovska-Pocuca. I've been teaching math at Mohawk College since 2005. And recently, I started experimenting with lots of things, and I would like to share some of those lots of things. So when we started with online teaching, I believe somehow everything exploded. I don't know if you had that feeling, but I felt that everything exploded. And I remember a video from, I don't know if you remember this video, if you saw it, from Veritasium. He was talking about how from time to time, everybody comes and says, this will be the thing. This will revolutionize the education. And it was all with technology, like YouTube, Khan Academy, MOOC, many different things. Somehow the technology is there, but still it's not going to revolutionize what he suggests. And I really agree, it's going to evolutionize the education. So technology is here to help us, the teachers, and especially this online teaching. When we moved like 2020, like last year, I felt like there were so many things thrown at us because everybody was kind of rushing and running. Let me show you this. Here is another thing that you can do something. And we were actually, everybody, from what I know and what I've seen, everybody was welcoming and trying out. We wanted to find some connection or bridge the gap between the pedagogy and technology, so technology can help us deliver the material, and in these online times, also assessing the students. Oops. It seems that I went a little bit too far ahead of me, but we were using technology in synchronous settings, but however, even if it wasn't synchronous, in a synchronous way of delivering lectures or tutorials, we were still relying on technology. And also, it helped us to practice the teaching, the learning and assessment, because we wanted to have inclusive environment for our students and universal design of learning as well, so we can have multiple ways so we can reach everybody from our wide range of students. And what a year it has been, for sure. However, two things that I even last year started with remain the same: how to engage the students and how to assess what they've learned in the class. I still wanted to bring culture of learning with my students. The most important part for them is to learn. I was there for them anytime if they needed my support. I try to be as much as I can. I kind of sometimes I felt that I'm like I don't know if you remember the cartoon with the little George and the duck and rabbit, Bugs Bunny. Like I was kind of feeling that I'm the Yeti who was crushing the Bugs Bunny or the duck, pretending to be a rabbit. Like you're a rabbit, George. I don't know if you remember that. Somehow I felt like I'm kind of with a merciless support. I was crushing my students. And I did stay true to no proctoring. I chose that way to go, and I'm still trying to be with no proctoring for students. However, I also want to add that many of these things here are probably in your toolbox. So it's not that I'm inventing something new, but I try to use and to bring them in light in my classes, and I would like to share the results in this session as well. So I will point at a couple of things that I did before the semester started, and also how I delivered and how I assessed my students, how I delivered the material and how I assessed my students. So those were the kind of like my content of today's workshop. I do have to warn you, it's going to be a lot of information provided. So kind of sometimes I tell my students, like, hold on your chairs, like we're going to have a very, very busy day or busy session for today. And I hope that some of these things will spark interest in you, and you will try to use them in your classes as well with your students. About my students, I teach first year computer science, software and networking, both streams. It is important because we always have sometimes some things you can do in one class that you can not do in another class, or one course versus another course. There are things that you can do in a sixth semester student with 6 semester students, and there are other things that you can do in the first semester students. So these are my first semester and second term computer and students. I was surveying them from the very start, and I always want to ask their input, how they're looking at the material, how can the teacher give better support so they can achieve their goal, and many different things I tried to do. They kind of allowed me, and I wanted to maybe diversify the amount of work for them so that I can give them additional opportunities for them to show what they've learned. Before we ever started, and I mentioned this earlier, that when I had the first online delivery, after first test, I asked students who achieved more than 90% on their test, I asked them, what did you do? How did you learn? What did you do so you can get this kind of great result, right? And would you like to share some strategies with the next semester students? So I surveyed them. They forwarded some paragraphs, some answers, and I really like those, the way how they expressed themselves, how they found these strategies that help them learn. So at the end, I said, okay, I'm going to put all these little paragraphs of comments, and I'll make a little video scribe video animated. And I'm thinking, yes, I'll share this video with every semester in the future. And hopefully they will believe their former students more, or fellow students more than believe me, because most of these things were, I've been saying all these things, start the assignment as soon as it's open, ask questions as soon as you don't understand something, but maybe they'll believe their fellow students more. At the end of the video, I always share that comment, because there was a long time ago in the elevator in my campus at the college, there was a graffiti written, "Cry now, graduate later," and that's at the very bottom of the video. It was it stuck with me. It was so long ago that we didn't really have cameras, because I should have taken a photo of that little graffiti. because it really feels like that for them, for students. It may feel like, oh, I'm going to cry now. This is too much. But cry now, graduate later. So that kind of resonates with the students as well. Before the semester starts, but the next survey is open during week 1. I ask students a couple of questions just to know them better, just to see what kind of group of students I'm working with. This semester, for example, I have over 200 students. I have 2 big sections. This is the results from this semester. However, when I was doing this presentation, I referred to my previous PowerPoint, and really not much changed. Students liked, at least the group that I have, like to study individually more than anything else. They also have other commitments. Interestingly, this graph, very small changes it had as well. Lots of our college students work part-time, but also full-time. I don't know how they're making it, but hopefully they're making it. Their time management skills, how they perceived are in week 1, and I will actually come back to this slide a little bit later, because this is week 1, how they perceive their time management skills. Pretty fair, right? There was no 1 star at all. Everybody were thinking that, okay, I may be a little bit less, but I'm pretty good. And also I asked how many hours they plan for weekly homework to work on only math class, and how much they plan to attend online lectures. And I come back to this very often. During the semester, I tell them, look, you promised me that you're going to be working 5 hours per week on math class, and you promised that you're going to be attending over 90% of my classes. Something happened, right? But you promised. This is a promise for me. So I'm sorry, I'm going to hold it on you. And then I also ask, what is the expectation from the teachers? So these are comments from this semester. Students, most of them, and I had from 200 students, I had 148 replying back. So that was very interesting, that most of the surveys at the beginning of the semester, students are actually doing it. They're very eager to do the work. Somehow, somewhere during the semester, they get too much overload. But most of the comments were about that. Students need our support. They need our guidance. They rely on us. And I think with online delivery, they really rely on us, because they don't really see the student advisor that often. They don't see their fellow group classmates that often. So I'm the first one for them for support. But I do have a PowerPoint, and then I show these slides to the students back in class. And then after these expectations, what they told the expectations from me is, I give them this slide where I say, these are expectations from me, from you, but my expectations. And we talk about this a little bit. I kind of get them thinking about, yes, I'm here for you, but you have to ask for help. Like I cannot, there is a saying that you can only take by force. You cannot give by force. So, you have to ask for my help. I cannot give it to you if you're not asking. And then the course content. So I really try to organize my course content, and I write nice syllabus. And I think that you've seen this, it's on the syllabus very often in positive or negative context, but we do pay attention to the syllabus very much as teachers. And we think students will read it, will make a note, and we always try to find some ways of getting students to read to the syllabus. So this is what I did this semester. I actually did a little quiz. We have an intro quiz the beginning of the semester. And I have the last question in the intro quiz is something like this. I have them open the learning plan, so you can use the learning plan on the file on a side, and then answer these questions. You have to enter the password, which comes from each of these letters, like emojis. And the little slide is like the video is done in Tingling with a 360 image, but the actual activity is done in Mobius, and Mobius is the platform that I use for assessments for my both my math courses. But I kind of found, okay, this is a nice way. You have to answer the questions, and hopefully you'll remember, because most of the things that I wanted them to know from the very beginning, I put on this in this question on the intro quiz. They found it very nice, very lovely, because this is a cybersecurity classroom. That was pretty cool. I found it very cool when I was doing it. I really had fun as well in doing it. My course content is also organized in small bits of videos. Each math concept, I have a small video. I put the time stamp, how long the video is. I have it either in Mobius or I have it in my Canvas. So they know if they're missing on, converting from one number system from binary to octal, they can see what the video is. On top of that, because of the universal design of learning, I also found that now that I have all these videos created, I can put them in my course notes, because I don't have a textbook for my courses. I have course notes, and I put the little QR code, thinking if students will print out the notes, they can, and work on paper, they can maybe do the video on their phone. If not, if they're working on my Canvas in my learning management system, they can click on the link, or if they're working in Mobius, they can click on the link as well. So again, multiple ways for them. That's what the UDL is for. I'll use the technology. If I have it, I'll do it. The lectures are also broken up in smaller micro lectures, and I started doing this last year. I don't have everything done, and that's another thing that we cannot do. The days doesn't have, somehow I always said everything, I leave everything for the summer, but then somehow summer went and I missed many hours in the days, or many days in the week. Somehow they disappeared. I didn't get enough, but it's always a progress. So I'll try to do something now. I'll try to do a little bit then later. So with this micro lecture, my goal was to create the lesson, maybe a little bit connection at the very beginning, like the video before is I teach Boolean algebra. So I have a video on George Boole. And then I have a video of the actual material, and then a question. And then with the questions, we always start with an easy question, because I know that everybody, most of us will agree that not knowing the answer is not an easy feeling. Like that's something that always sticks with me. Like I like, and it's not just because I'm a high achiever, or I want to win all the time, or I'm a competitive person. Like it doesn't have to be like that. Like not knowing, or knowing that you're wrong, it's not very nice. So I try to start with small questions, easy questions. And then when we were in class, after the class, or during the concept, when I deliver, I ask my students, where do you think students may go wrong? I'm not saying where do you think you're going to be wrong, but where do you think the students, somebody else, can go wrong? And then, or what do you think is most important? Or what do you think the teacher will put on the test? Things like that to get them going or thinking about the lesson that was just delivered. And then I start. My classes start with a little my classes start with a PowerPoint slide like this, similar to this, when I invite my students and I say what will be taught that day. However, when the class starts, and I always start right on time, this is how I feel I'm working and who I'm working with. And this is an image from Can-Can. And if you remember, the Can-Can is a very high level, very high rhythm, fast rhythm song. That's how I feel in class. Like I'm starting from the very beginning, and I'm doing all the information, I'm passing by, I'm asking students for input, but I don't know. This is how I imagine the class goes. I have 2-hour classes. And when we were in classroom, face-to-face, we were always looking, or at least I was always looking, I don't want to lecture students. I don't want to be the one that will do the work on the board, and students are just going to watch me and hear, and everything will go in their head. We were always afraid not to lecture. with online delivery, I'm always afraid not to tutor, because I find that it's very easy to start doing questions and just tutor students. We're not tutors here. We still have to have, I don't say that we have to have a TED Talks every class, but to have a little, maybe more lecturing or more mix and match of things, not just solving or tutoring in class. My Zoom classes I deliver through Zoom because all of the courses are delivered through Zoom. So I don't want to shift students from one platform to the other. I'm doing it through Zoom. I have 2 hours lecture. It's a long lecture doing math. So at the middle of the lecture, I'll make a break, but I do want to mix what I have during the delivery. So sometimes I'll have a slide or a little bit nice visual for the slide, for the lecture. But then also I use same handouts, same worksheets as students. I use my document camera, and then we write together. I like my hand on the camera because I've read somewhere that students copy what they see. So if they see my handwriting, their hand starts writing, or the pace, the speed that somebody writes on the board, actually, it's the same how students will take in the material. So it's a right speed of their taking in. And I like to do both document camera and the lectures like this, so they can have a little bit breathing period. With visual, I can expand a little bit more, or maybe I can give little different colors or some movement if I have another, like a different topic. But that's how my 2-hour classes go. And then because it's 2 hours, again, I have to have a break in the middle. But also because I have Zoom, I use polls and chats in Zoom. During the class, I do like to point a couple of things. Something that is related to them, to the material or to their program, something cool. I love math, so I always bring something cool that I find or I know of. So this is a page, Matigon.org. I don't know if you it may have been in your toolbox, as I mentioned earlier, but this site has very neat activities, games, information, lessons. I like to bring some of them in class as well. I also have, like, for example, when we were talking about combinatorics, I bring, there is a game, like a card game, Spotted, and we actually do combinations out from that game. So people who have, like students who have small children, they're actually even more interested in this because, oh, I didn't know about this game. I would like to buy it for my children because it kind of is a very nice, cool game for kids as well. And I also have, for example, I teach Boolean algebra, and this kind of question, which of the following is true? This one is taken, I found it on Reddit. And it's a very cool question, ask a question, multiple choice question. But we actually can solve it with Boolean algebra simplification. And the way how it solves, it's way cooler than the actual multiple choice question. So they can see the relation between what we're teaching in our course and something that is outside. I created another one after this one, which was interesting because if you say that only one answer is true, you have, I believe it was the third choice from the options. But if you allow multiple selection, then there are other 2 that are actually correct. So that was even cooler. And again, it can be solved with just normal simplification. Or something cool, I don't know if you, last time I mentioned the radio garden, which is, it brings all the radios from around the world, but it's pretty cool for students who are international, because if they're here in Hamilton or in Canada, in Ontario, they can actually hear what their family is hearing, or the radio that was from their back home. So I like to bring something like that for the break. I use chat. I ask students to be very vocal, very commenting in chat. The one thing that I don't, I try to go down on the chat is writing answers, because writing the answers can be a little bit disruptive to the students who are working still on the question. But I like to ask for, give me the information or give me your comments in chat. And polls. During the class, I always bring polls. Very often I'll bring poll just asking, how is the class going so far? I can follow along well, I have some troubles, or I have no clue. And then I share the results with them so they can kind of see if, you know, where they're standing. And I always focus on bringing, if you have a question in class, right away shout it, because I do have to go further, but I cannot go further if you didn't cover the basics, if I didn't cover the basics. So polls are very, very good for me. I find students will even ask for a poll, send a poll, just because now they're curious to see how the class was going. I tried not to bring too many things in class. So for that reason, I use the Zoom polls and I use as much as I can from the learning management systems. The brain breaks that I mentioned, I do like to bring a couple of these. My students are computer students, and here is a guy who's talking about a code that is actually written in 128 languages. So one code, one language calls another language, another code, and then goes all around in 128 languages. I'm not a programmer, but I found that fascinating. And I know students may know of this guy or may not know of the guy, but just the information, the knowledge, the information that is, we can mix these languages, and the actual code was written in a very cool method, because the code also had a very cool shape as well. So that was, I found it cool. So I said, okay, I'm going to bring it to class. Maybe students don't know about, haven't heard of it. Another one is, because I mentioned I teach Boolean algebra, so I'll bring Claude Shannon, who took Boolean algebra, the book written by George Boole, and brought it in electronics. And that's how it was the second thing that needed for the computer to be formed, to be created. These are this video is taken from Documentary Mania website, and that site is also pretty cool about having different videos. And learning strategies. So this is what I actually wanted to talk the most, because it gave me a nice insight from students. We have a video of top 10 videos, learning strategies that students can help. It can help their studying. I put this video in an assignment as an optional question, and this was in week 3 that I did. And then I asked them, please tell me which learning strategy you plan to work on, or 1 or 2 or 3 or more. After this, after the first test was done in week 6, I actually asked the same question. So it was very interesting, the difference of their opinion, how some things have changed in their strategies. So, and then after test 1, I also asked them, what can you change for later? But when I sent this in week 3, the learning strategies, these are the top three strategies that they choose, that they're gonna work on. And I brought the other slide from the time management from week 1, when they were kind of feeling that, oh, I'm pretty good on time. But then in week 3, they noticed top 1 is manage your time. So I have to work on my time the most. Even more interesting, after test 1 in week 6, when they finished the test, I asked them the same, which of these top 10 strategies you were using. And which you have to work further. This was the result. And first was take notes. Second was eliminate distraction. And third came manage your time. So now they found that taking notes was the most important for them, and they're going to focus more on that portion. Eliminate distraction was actually 9th on the previous survey. So they really didn't even think about distractions. But just switching their mind from, okay, I have to worry about time management. No, I have to worry about taking notes in class. That was pretty revealing for me. I ask students for tests. I ask them to write handwritten solutions, and I give them test 1 instruction. So this is my test 1 instruction, because I felt that, and I found this also online. There was a post written about this. Somehow you search online, you find things, but you don't have a source to refer to. But there was a teacher who was saying that I would like to have test instructions, but it will be foggy and blurry and flip-flop like this or like that. And I post this before the test, and I say, okay, we're going to have chat in class. Please take a look at the instructions. But then they start sending emails, because now it doesn't matter how they zoom in or not, they're not going to be able to see anything. And they start emailing back saying, Miss, I cannot read anything. And I say, yes, that's how I feel. Please do not do the same when you do the handwritten solutions and upload it to the Dropbox. I try to make it more memorable by them experiencing it in a fun way. So that was my goal there. Do I have to show all the steps? Yes, for sure. About assessments and how do we assess? So at this moment, I would like to send a poll for you just to see what kind of assessments do you use in your classes. So the poll can be sent now with multiple choice. You can select any of the provided ones. Maria, can I have the poll? Yeah, thank you very much. So there are more questions in the poll. You have to scroll down to select to see the bottom ones as well. I'm interested to see what kind of assessments you use in the math classes. Please select more than one if you use more than one for sure. So we'll get the
Frosina,
poll.
are you able to see it?
Yes, I'm.
Okay, great.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll get the poll answering. And see how many, like even when I was looking to make the list for you for options as options, I was kind of feeling, no, I'm missing some. There probably are more things that I can put as an assessment. And we like to assess students, but those assessments are not always like anxious or are not there to provide bad feelings. Like the students will take them as, or I hope they're taking them as learning opportunities. Doesn't matter if it's formative or summative. I always find that all assessments are made the same. What makes it formative or summative is just that how we collect the data from them, like how the evidence is collected from the assessment and how I infer from the data that I collect.
Frosina, would you like me to end the poll?
Yes, we can end the poll now and share.
Okay, there we go.
Perfect. So most of us, interesting, yes, test exams, assignments, quizzes, that is always there. Like we always start with having these 3 even in a course grading scheme. And then everything else can be addition or can be just a slight manipulation of the quizzes and the assignments. And how do we do it? Do we proctor? Do we do oral exams? Do we have open books? Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And now how some assessments that I do in the class, that I use technology and I actually rely on technology very much, are quizzes. But now I have in online environment, I have an extension to this. So I always say short answer with explanation or multiple choice with explanation. So I like to ask students, yes, you can convert the numbers, you can do it, but then give me how you did it. That way they cannot just go and Google the answer, because very easily you can just take the number and change from one number system to another, you'll get it. Another thing that I started doing, this is an immediate feedback assessment technique. And this was shown at one of the workshops at the University of Toronto, Mississauga campus. And I think Sinley as well was there. We had, when we were in face-to-face, I actually bought these packages, and I can send them to students. I can create a multiple choice test, quiz, and students will have to scratch an answer, and if there is a star behind that scratching, that means they got the correct answer. So this feedback was right away created with correct answers. So I just had to create my quiz based on those ABCD answers. And I found it very nice, because students before scratching, they would be a little bit anxious. Oh, should I scratch it or no? Oh, it's not there. So they will, it was a little bit interesting for them. Now that I'm online, I actually was able to do this in Mobius as well, because I have multiple choice, yes. But after each attempt, you have a penalty. So I can see how many times you did the question wrong. So at the end, eventually you will get it right. Same as this little card. You will get to the right answer at the end. But how many times did you do it? I don't know. Now I can see it. So that was pretty nice that I was able to do a question like that in Mobius. For the tests, another thing that I did, I started doing last year with online delivery, and I found works very well. I will continue till the end of my career. Students like to give input for the tests. However, I don't feel comfortable with asking them, create a question and I'll put it on the test. I kind of feel that they still don't know enough to create a question. I'm talking about my first semester students and my second semester students. When I reach higher semesters, maybe I'll try that as well. But with these kids, what I did, I create a big review. So 30 questions or 40 questions, I'll have big test review, and I'll ask students after they complete the question, rated, how many stars do you want to have this question on the actual test? And then I promise them the top 10 questions from this review will go on the test or on the final exam. And I'll fill in extra just to see which ones were omitted, so I can add more of my choosing. They like this. They like to have that input. Even if they go in and just rate the questions, I'm fine with that. Mobius was the platform where I was able to collect the data, because this is ranking not per question, it's ranking per part of a question. So yes, maybe it looks very ugly inside in an Excel file, but then eventually at the end, it comes very nicely, so I can see which question had how many stars, and I can pull that data. So that was pretty nice, that I really feel works for students on both ways. They do the review and they also have input to what they want on the test. My tests now started to have a little bit copyright, because I found my assessments online, Course Hero, check, study notes and things like that. So I started putting a copyright on the actual question inside my platform, because I feel that, and I stress, this is intellectual property. If you're caught sharing this material, then it's even worse than cheating. So it's not just cheating portion, but it's also a time for a little bit heavy penalty. And also after test, I communicate the results. I say which questions or what kind of mistakes students did, good or bad. But we always say that the handwritten solutions have comments in it, in the papers. I'm saying, why students don't read the comments? Like I write so nicely, this is the error where you went wrong. You were supposed to do this even, but I kind of feel students don't read. So what they did this time, this was the first time that I did, I actually released the Dropbox, the handwritten solutions with my comments in it. They can see the check marks, my comments, the X's for the wrong answers, or some missing questions as well. But then I asked them, fill in this survey. And in the survey, I asked, based on the comments, what grade do you think you're gonna get on the test? And I also asked, what do you think you will change in the strategies, in the learning strategies? So this is where this taking notes came. After this test, after seeing what they did or did wrong or right, they actually switched from time management. Yes, managing time is there, but I also want to have taking notes. So that was something that I would definitely continue to go. And then I have, like, I'm looking at the time as well. I have a couple of things that I wanted to show more about using technology in finding errors, providing feedback. Like the previous question is, in this question, I actually have students going and selecting it's a full solution provided, but it has wrong line somewhere. They have to point at which line the mistake was made. So at the end, the answer is wrong. So it's not just solve the equation, but find the error and tell me how the actual question will be solved. The feedback is probably everywhere in all our assessments. Feedback is very important. Sometimes an intrigue, this was a question created in objection.lol. It's a very cool software as well. And it gets, when I did it, this was a game that students played in high school. So it was a little bit nice for them as well to have connection. But this was an equation done probably right, but there is an error. So I even asked at the end, are there any grounds for appeal? And things like that. Participation is another thing that if I can send the second poll now, I would like to ask you, what do you think a participation, what kind of thing goes into participation grade? If we can have some of this, or maybe at the end you say, no participation should be graded, because I know I've seen both ways. I've seen courses that will have a participation class, just clear attendance, or some in-class quizzes done on the spot, or some argue no participation should be graded. When I was in face-to-face, definitely no participation should be graded was for me. I was there. When I went online, I started changing my opinion, because somehow I have to reach students one way or the other. I don't know if we can, yeah, we have the poll going. We can give a few more seconds. And I'll share some of my participation, how I understood, how I brought in participation in my class. Okay, I think that we answered as much as we, Maria, can we, yeah, and share the results. So online in-class quizzes, that can be definitely participation, or small group discussions. No participation should be graded. Yes, that's definitely something that will stay there. And if you allow me just to show you the way how I brought participation in my class, I split it into two parts. One is the quizzes, and they're open after a class. Very small, simple questions, multiple choice. I see the students twice per week, so I needed them to focus a little bit on after the first class. so I can have the second class delivered as well with them knowing what happened previously. But then I have participation where I give them a choice. My classes are big, 100 students. I have students who will say, this is too boring, and students who will say, this is too messy. I don't understand anything. With participation, I actually provided two things. One is the video tutorial quizzes, where I would say to students, you have an option to choose either one or the other. So this one, I have watch a video, answer questions, and provide, there was also a handwritten solution as well for one or two questions. This was a little bit more challenging. So for students who, this is boring, I lost faith in these smart classes. Here is a little bit challenging material. So I'm teaching the, formal logic. And I found this video on artificial intelligence where a person is teaching a robot, asking questions, the robot is actually answering. And I gave them a little, probably, I hope I gave them a little light of how all of this is going to be used later on. And then I talk about implication and modus ponens and modus tollens that I haven't taught since I don't know when, probably when I was because back home, like grade 9, we were teaching something like this. So I love this material. So somehow even this helped me as well to get a little bit of perk here and there. So this was for my challenging students. And I said, if you don't want to be challenged, you feel like, no, I don't have time for this. I say, give me a question that you didn't know how, you didn't understand how to solve, but eventually you understood it. And then write how you came to understand it. Students wrote things and gave me, like I changed my mind. I think that I'm delivering the material, they understand it. Yes, left, right, I can kind of, shuffle, but this actually was more on them reflecting and saying, this was right, this was wrong, here is I made a mistake, this was just a bunch of letters, or this kind of feedback from students, really, I understood, I looked at my material through their eyes. So I really love this activity. And they made pretzels, they made, one kid even made a video scribe. I say, any software that you can use, at the end of time, just write it on a paper. There was a rubric of what I wanted to, how I'm gonna grade. I love this. I was literally reading these things and just saying, wow, out loud. I love my students. I love having being a teacher. Students love sharing their accomplishments. I have students from previously who created apps for material that we have in our courses. I love to share this, and I'm continuing to share their names in my classes with the agreement. They have codes written, but codes to find things in my math classes. And I actually like to post these things somewhere that everybody will be able to see from my former students and then from my future students. And then the gamification of the experience, we all know, we read about that gaming is good to bring in education. It gets you motivated, it gives you awards, it gets self-confidence, you like the leveling up, things like that. And the way how I brought gamification in my course was with that math escape room, or it may be more as a virtual tour of the college where I ask students to come for a co-op interview, and they had to solve math questions because each question was was from the math course that I have, and they had to go from one room to the other, and that was for the final exam done. And at the end, again, this was my board from little things that I would collect from time to time. So now this board is actually in binders, in folders. So the biggest folder, the thickest folder is the assessments one. I like to work with my colleagues. I'm promoting team players. This is my new saying, I'm math, therefore I am. and also your own self-care as well. What a year it has been, indeed, but what's next? So thank you for your, I really spent too much time talking, but I really, like you can see that I have so much to share. I would like to pass the stage on to you now and see if we would like to share.
Thank you, Frosina. If you want to unshare, and then we can, what I'll do is I'll read some of the comments that are in the, we have about 8 minutes. So I'll share some of the comments and questions that were shared in the chat. So the first one I see here is Natalia. So she asked, so do students know before the test which questions were selected by the poll?
No, they don't have the list. There was a question from a student who asked that, like, would I post the top 10? No, I can post afterwards, but not before.
Okay. Oh, Norm asked a question, but Zinli replied Mobius. Okay, so that's fine. Vanessa, great idea for participation. How time consuming was this to grade? Would you use rubrics? Which one was that for Vanessa? I'm not sure if it was for something specific that she was speaking to.
It was with respect to participation. If that is graded, and how do you grade their participation? So
participation part, the video tutorial in Mobius were automatically graded. The participation with the PowerPoints and their concept and counter had a rubric. One thing is that I have 6 modules and I asked them the best 3. So they only have to complete 3 modules out of 6. So far, I didn't receive that many. So I don't think that I will be stressed out with, and they have to choose one or the other. So most students went with module A, tutorial. They saw, oh, this is too much. I don't have the time for this. Let me do the PowerPoint. But I didn't get that many, so it was good. I was fine with marking that.
Thank you, Frosina. Sandra asked, how many different courses did you prepare in this way?
So for now, I have, this one is first with participation. This is the first time that I'm trying the participation. I do have 2 courses that I do with weekly quizzes with test review. The test review is there for both of them. But participation came this time only. And I would love to do it for the second semester as well. It all depends how wide my Christmas break becomes.
Okay, yes. Okay, does anyone else have any questions or comments? You can put your hand up if you want to undo your video and chat. We have a few more minutes before our next session.
I hope you don't mind, Maria. I just had a couple of direct messages about Mobius, and I'm the account executive. So I thought, you know what, I'll just put my email in the chat. If there's any questions specifically around Mobius, just reach out to me.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Robin.
Yeah. Like I found Mobius works for me because I can bring everything in it. So I don't have to send students to many different places. So that was, I kind of say, like, I found my platform. I'm good.
Thank you, Frosina. Any other questions or comments before we end the session? I think everyone really appreciated all that information you shared, Frosina, and the examples, and it was great that you shared screenshots so they could actually visually see what you were talking about. I think that was wonderful. Yes, absolutely. So everyone's thanking you. So thank you so much. All of you know you can reach out to Frosina if you have any other questions. Again, and hopefully, like I said, we will reconvene in May together, and maybe Frosina can do a follow-up. It's almost going to be like the opposite. We've all done the going to virtual. Now it'll be like, how do we go back and still and use some of the things we've learned? So anyway, we'll see what comes up. Thanks, everyone. See you in the next session. Thank you so much,
Maria.
Frosina.
And thank you all.
Bye, everybody.